Gilmore to Janrkrok, shooting, score! Dave Janrkrok hits the 50 mark, down the backing, Clark racism. Holy Mackinac, he's got three!
Good morning, Toronto Maple Leaf fans. Welcome back to the Leafs Lounge for Thursday, May 14th. Hopefully we got a good audience tonight. We have Leaf game night back tonight. It's been a while, right? It's been almost a week, and we know for Leaf fans, that's an eternity in between games. So happy to get a game night discussion back going. Justin Kudo will be joining us in a little bit here. So just to tee things up here, we are Leafs Lounge. If you're hearing us or watching us for the first time, we are here every Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, and would love you guys to join us. You can add comments if there's anything you like about the show or things you would like to see. And yeah, we're kind of talking everything Leaf topic, Leaf news. So we'd love to have you aboard. And on that note, I'll bring in Justin here. What up, Justin?
Hey.
How's it going?
How's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
Not too bad.
Yeah. Excited for
my Wi-Fi is super buggy right now. So I'm super excited.
Technical difficulties on the Leafs Lounge, everybody. Gonna have to pull through. All good. All right, so I'm just kind of teeing up for the audience. We obviously have a Leaf game tonight, which is something we haven't been able to say for a few days now, almost a week. A big gap in between games.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's been way too long, man. So we're in Philly tonight, 7:30 p.m. start time. We're obviously talk a lot about that game and maybe do a little bit of a preview on the upcoming game on the weekend. We're hosting Carolina. Maybe see Freddie Anderson make a return. Leafs might be wearing Leafs will be in the St. Pat's jerseys. I don't know if you saw those.
Oh, yeah, I did. How do you like them?
I like them. Like, I still kind of would prefer it to be all green, white trim. I think there's kind of a lot of fans that have been mentioning that as opposed to white with the green trim. I just think like an all green would be pretty solid, but I like what they did. It's nice. You?
Yeah, I feel like all those St. Pat's jerseys are so sick.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard for you to mess up with that kind of the logo and the color scheme. Like nothing beats it.
Yeah. I can't lie.
Definitely one of my favorite. Definitely one of my favorite Leaf jerseys.
Yeah, I can't lie. I was on the Real Sports Apparel website yesterday, and I was just I had an itchy trigger finger, almost added a St. Pat's jersey to the cart. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hold off. I was pretty proud of myself, but it was close.
Yeah, last year I fell for the trap of the reversible, the inside out jersey.
Mm-hmm. It's a nice one.
Yeah.
I got one of those too. Yeah,
I feel like on the back. It's super nice though.
Yeah, I feel like at this point I've got all the players that I would like to have. I've got a Marner, a Matthews, a JT. I recently got a Joseph Wall jersey. At this point, I think I'm gonna. Yeah. He's
Joseph
my guy.
Sick.
He's my guy. I think he's the future at the position. So took a little bit of a chance there.
Okay.
I feel good about that. Obviously, I think we talked about it before. Like some of the Leaf jerseys I bought in the past, I don't think have scarred me from investing in any player that could potentially be just a flavor of the month. I've been known to buy a Bozak jersey. I've had I had a Brian McCabe. So I've had a bunch, and I'm not overly proud of, just by obviously being a hardcore Leaf fan and feeling I needed to get more than one jersey. So who's my next favorite player? So I'm hoping the Wall won't backfire in terms of, collecting dust in my closet if he doesn't pan out. But for now, I like the purchase. I feel good about it for now.
Yeah, I had a Kessel one in the past. I got it when I was really young, so it was smaller. So now it's like a tank top on me, so I could never touch it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't think you were the only one who invested in Phil the Thrill.
The t-shirts were more the way to go. The t-shirts were more the way to go.
Yeah, I think I kind of learned that over the last few years. If you're a little bit kind of iffy or not sure about a player in terms of if he's going to be here a long time with the team or if you're going to like him for long enough to justify the cost of a jersey, you go with the t-shirt. You can't go wrong. Even if the guy gets traded, at least it's a cheap pajama shirt, you know?
See, one guy I really wanted to get for so long. He was one of my favorite Leafs in like the dark ages. Was Tyler Bosey.
Yeah.
Nice 42.
I had one of those. Yeah. I think everyone was so hyped when he got signed out of college. It's like, oh, there was a lot of teams that were in on him, so I think everyone jumped on board with the Bozak hype. And he was a good player. I just don't think he ever got to...
I love Bosey, yeah.
Yeah, he was a good two-way forward. Obviously worked well with Phil for a bit. Yeah, they had the line, him, JVR, and Phil. It was pretty solid line for them. In those dark days, as you mentioned.
I think Bosey was the perfect, like, 1C for the dark age. Like, you know, good enough to bring some excitement, but bad enough where we still lose every game.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely made sure as the 1C to keep the tank alive, you know?
Yeah.
Even though we had a couple playoff runs with him.
What was it? 2013, and he was he there for the
Washington?
Caps?
The Washington
the Cap series, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember he scored that big goal in, what was it, game 3?
Against the Caps?
When we went up 2-1. I think that was that him or Kadri that scored the OT winner.
I think if you're talking about at home, the OT winner was Naz. Yeah, on the deflection. Okay. He got that one. Yeah, I remember that one well because I was in the building. That was an unbelievable game.
Actually?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Phenomenal game to be at. Because then it was kind of the first time the Leafs were in the playoffs after there being a little bit of a gap there. So as a Leaf fan, going to the game, no expectations. It's like there's no way we're going to beat OV in a playoff series. If we win even one game, we're good. But then I forget if that would have been game 3, right?
That was game 3.
For us to go up 2-1. Because I think we won.
We won game 1 off of that Brian Boyle behind the back pass.
Yeah.
To Kapanen.
Is it game 1 we won or game 2? Did we win game 1?
Game 1. I think that was game 1.
I know that game 3 obviously made it 2-1 for us. I just can't remember if we won 1 or 2 in Washington. But yeah, that's right. The Brian Boyle, that was a fun goal. And then when we won that game 3, I was like, hold on a second here. Are we actually going to beat Washington?
Are we cooking?
Yeah, no, then it's like, okay. Okay, here comes Washington.
That entire season of Leafs hockey was probably my favorite season. No expectations.
Fun. Yep.
And it was just all these rookies came in, Hyman, Marner, Matthews, all these rookies, and you're just so excited. Then team starts winning. Matthews scores 4 goals, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, and it's still at the height of
the Connor Brown hype.
Oh, yeah. It was still at the height of the Shanna plan where everyone just had blind faith in everything he was doing. Mike Babcock, how did we get the greatest coach in the NHL to come be here? He's definitely going to win multiple cups here. All the vibes were good. You didn't have any of this infighting with Leaf fans.
Something new.
Right. Yeah, you didn't have the same kind of fighting with Leaf fans now where it's like you got the side that's like, hey, just enjoy that the Leafs are a good team. And then the other side, well, but the bar is here now and we're not anywhere close to that. We're not winning cups. So stop being excited that Nylander re-signed or that Matthews might score 70. These aren't the things that should excite our fans anymore. You have basically those two factions now. It's pretty funny how it changed.
Yeah, we have more exciting things like Bobby McMann resigning as well.
Yes. Great segue, Justin. Great segue. I think we got to enter into that discussion. Your thoughts on the deal? Pretty pretty much seems like a pretty good deal for both sides. What was your opinion?
I mean, I think it's super fair. I think McMahon has earned this extension, and he gets some job security that he didn't really have for the past couple seasons, where he's been in the AHL, not really knowing. Then he comes up to the Leafs, and he's on a two-way, can get claimed off waivers at any time, and now he has that job security. He knows where he's going to be playing for the next 2 years, and he stays at a really low cap hit for the Leafs, which is going to be big for, you have to spend money to re-sign Marner, baby Tavares, who knows. You got to fix the defense, and now you have a good, reliable third line winger at 1.35. So perfect.
Yeah, I mean, look, the guy was in the ECHL like 2 years ago, So I think where everyone's I think you're getting the devil's advocate side. Like I think even Nick Kyprios was saying, like, hey, if Bobby McMann is going to take a 2-year term at 1.35, he might be leaving a lot on the table. And that may in fact be true, but I think when you're coming from where Bobby McMann has, and you obviously got on a heater, and that kind of helped you get into a full-time role in the NHL. You also have to look at it like, look where I came from, talking as Bobby McMahon, and you get 2 years, 1.35. That's not chump change. I get it. He could have maybe bet on himself, and if he gets on another heater, and then if he has a good playoff, could he make $2 million? Sure, but I don't think too many players would take that chance.
Yeah, right? And I think there's like a sense of like home cooking here, He spent so much time in Toronto, not just with the Leafs, but as you said, he spent how long? How many seasons with the Marlies? 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, it feels like 2, maybe.
So he's fought his way, and it's a good Leaf Toronto grown story. Like, this is our hometown talent that we just kept here. Really freaking boosted him, gave him chances to succeed, and you want to see him run with it, and he has.
Yeah, and I think it's a key transaction, because we've talked about it a couple of times already, how when you look at next year, you're going to have to hope that you have a lot of guys on a cheap contract like the McMahon. Your entry-level contract guys probably have to play prominent roles, whether that's, a Easton Cowan, a Fraser Minton. You're going to need these cheap contracts. So I like that they found a guy who, probably could be penciled in your top 9 next year, and you don't feel bad about it,
No, not at all. I think for now, I see him as the third line left wing going forward. And I think from what it looks like, lineups in each game and lineups going forward, it looks like Keefe has the same kind of projection for him.
Yep.
Just looking ahead to tonight's lineup from practice yesterday, it looks like Keefe is like in camp with McMahon and Nyes as the third line.
Yeah, going back to it. Yeah, and then so like the other things, it obviously came out from the practice, and maybe it will change, but unlikely. Simone Benoit again, press box, and then the one that I found really strange, and it just I think we want to get into a bigger Sheldon Keefe discussion. Callie Janrkrok gets promoted to line 1 with Bertuzzi and Matthews, and not only that, he also finds himself on power play 1 based on the practice. Thoughts or concerns with Callie Janrkrok in that spot?
Well, after Saturday, I said there's 0 chance Keefe is going to roll back Bertuzzi, Matthews, and Nylander. There is just 0 chance. So then you're left with a few options, right? You're like, do I throw Tavares on the wing? Stack that top line? Go Matthews, Tavares, Bertuzzi, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you go Janrkrok? Or do you give Nick Robertson a chance on the first line? I don't know. Like, there's not a lot of
getting
options.
the lineup yet. Yeah,
I think Janrkrok has chemistry with Matthews from playing there in the past, and so it's kind of an easy stopgap while Marner's out.
Yeah, like if it's a placeholder, which I'm sure that's all it is, I don't expect when Marner is back in the lineup, which could be as early as Saturday, I don't expect Janrkrok to remain there. I think it's just for me, and where I was going with the Sheldon Keefe concerns that I have. And look, this isn't about trying to make a case that he's not actually a good NHL coach. I think that's pretty clear with his record that he is a good NHL coach, but
Yeah.
I've just found, in terms of his lineup, some of the decisions he makes, whether it's guys not playing, like the case of Simone Benoit, we can get into that in a little bit. But with respect to Janrkrok, like we've seen this before. Like he tried Janrkrok with even Matthews and Marner last year in the playoffs, and Janrkrok was a complete ghost. Like couldn't do anything. And I get it. If it's only like a 1-game trial, I'm fine with it. But it just kind of worries me also, like, how is Janrkrok the next in line with Marner out for power play one time? Like, how is he
Yeah,
getting in there
that was
over
odd.
Nyes, Domi, McMahon?
Well,
I mean, come on.
I wouldn't have Nyes on there. I don't think Nyes is PP1 quality.
But
Or
Janrkrok is? You'd have
I'm
Janrkrok
not
there
saying
ahead of him?
Janrkrok is. I'm just saying
Yeah.
I'd have Janrkrok in line for power play 1 over Nyes at this point.
Okay.
Just
Because of the
because
shot?
I
The
think
shot you were
Janrkrok,
thinking?
because we already have JT in what would be Nyes' spot on the power play. That
Yeah.
low by the net guy. So
Yeah.
then that puts Nyes on the wing where I just don't think you're using him properly.
Yeah, and I guess it's not like it's in terms of the other options, it's not like it's like completely obvious that he should go with someone else. I just think there are better options, and Janrkrok's also going to be a part of your PK. So in terms of managing the ice time, if you now
Yeah.
have Janrkrok on line 1 and power play 1 and your PK 2, is he playing 20 minutes tonight? Like,
No. I think he'll
I don't
cover
want to
around
see Janrkrok out there that much.
I think he'll cover around 17 and a half, 18. But
Still too much for my liking, but yeah.
when you break down, I think when I would have liked Domi instead of Janrkrok on the first power play.
Sure.
Just
Yep.
because of Domi's instincts as a passer, I feel like he would be able to set up Matthews on the offside for one-timers.
A
Or
more
he
obvious replacement for Marner, right?
Yeah, it's kind of more like Walmart version of Marner's Domi, just that passing instinct,
Yeah.
which is still really good. Janrkrok brings, I guess, a different element because, yeah, as you said, he has a much better shot. I
Yeah.
wouldn't even say much better. I think it's a better shot than what Domi brings. But it's
Yeah, he has a good shot.
I think they have around equal scoring prowess.
Fair. Like, I'm just going to check it out here because I know Janrkrok had a great beginning of the year, but if I'm not mistaken, I know he was injured, so he missed a few games.
Yeah,
He's got 10 goals on the year,
it's not bad.
and it's not bad, but I don't think he's scored in quite some time. 1 second here. Yeah, I'm trying to do the. Oh my God. Yeah, so he hasn't scored since January 6th in San Jose. So that's close to 15 games. I'm trying to do the quick
He
eyeball
only has
here.
2 assists.
Yeah, so in
So
14 games.
maybe can you look at this as Keefe saying, we need Janrkrok come playoff time. He's scored 20 goals in the past. We need him. Maybe this is the boost that gets him going because we saw that when he put Bertuzzi on power play 1, he goes out and scores a hat trick against Colorado. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's really manifested into anything long term, but
No.
maybe Keefe is saying, let's get Janrkrok going. Maybe this is what he needs.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that. I think that's all fair. I guess for me, I don't see Janrkrok as a guy who's going to move a needle for you offensively. Like, I think with the ads of Bertuzzi, Domi, McMann being more impactful and potentially being able to, if you needed to move up to a top 6 role, to me, I don't see Janrkrok having any offensive role. I don't think you need him to be in that role. It just feels like, again, more Sheldon Keefe going back to old faithful guys that he likes to rely on, whether it's, in the past, it's been Justin Hall, Kerfoot, Engvall. We see it with Brody probably getting more ice time than he deserves. And now Janrkrok, David Kampf. That's where I kind of get a little bit concerned with Sheldon Keefe's, the way his utilization of certain players. It's like Janrkrok is a guy who Tree Living, previously as the Flames GM, made available in the expansion draft. He acquired him.
He got a pretty good package for him, though.
He paid a lot. He acquired him, and then he let him go. He obviously was able to sign with Toronto. So I think he maybe recognized that mistake, or Dubas just gave him a big contract. But he was let go by Nashville. I think it was Nashville, and then available in the expansion draft to Seattle. To me, he's like a good bottom six guy, good PK guy, but a journeyman forward who, if you're a cup contender, he shouldn't be anywhere near your first line or your power play one. I don't care if Mitch Marner is out. It just seems like a little bit of an odd placement right now. That's all.
But it's kind of like when you have middle six forwards who have the ability to score 15, 20 goals in a season.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, you could do a lot worse for an injury filler on the power play. And you see teams all the time that, that even really good teams like Colorado will throw Jonathan Drouin on their power play one. And Jonathan Drouin's not exactly anything good. He was pretty much out of the NHL. He was pretty much out of the NHL if he wasn't buddies with McKinnon, right? And, he's gone to Colorado. He's revived his career, I guess you could say. And he was touching their power play one and line one. So, I mean, I think Janrkrok's actually a better player than Drouin. Maybe he lacks the offensive talent, but there's players like this
behind him. But
there's players like this that aren't exactly world beaters that touch power play one and line one on other teams as well. I think just magnifying it.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if it's going to work, great. I just hope that if it isn't making the power play very efficient, there's going to be a quick hook of Janrkrok, because I don't think that's a long-term viable solution. But fair enough. Why don't we move on to, I guess, Simone Benoit being out of the lineup again. Had the quote from him saying, obviously, kind of similar as, I guess, Nick Robertson, unhappy. He wouldn't be a competitive hockey player if he was happy being benched. So shouldn't be expecting anything different. Now I'm kind of like getting concerned now that it's 2 games now that Benoit's sitting out. Does that mean he's on the outside looking in come game 1 of the playoffs, or far too early?
Why don't you tell me your thoughts first, because I know you're more of the Benoit guy than I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it does kind of concern me that I don't think Sheldon Keefe will sit Edmondson, because I think on Tuesday we had the discussion, you might not need Benoit and Edmondson both in. For me, I think you could build a case to put both of them in, but I think Edmondson clearly now is getting the love over Benoit. And I do kind of think that the idea of having the theoretical advantage of Timothy Liljegren, a right shot D-man, known great puck mover apparently, I think he's in the lineup. I think he is in there unless he really plays himself out of it, which I almost feel he had already, but clearly not. But if he keeps kind of dragging his tail and not performing, that's maybe Simone Benoit's way to get back in. But I do think that's the only path for it. I don't think he's playing ahead of Edmondson right now. I don't think he's playing ahead of Brody right now. So really, unless they decide that Lily, even as a right shot, he doesn't make us at all better in any way, shape, or form, I worry that Simone Benoit is the extra. And for me, I think he's one of our top 4 or 5 right now.
I mean, that's fair. I think that right now what you're seeing is more of Sheldon Keefe saying, I want to see what we have in this new edition. Keefe has no obligation to play Edmondson for every game from here on out. He's the one that goes in and sets the lineup every night. He doesn't if he doesn't think that Edmondson's better than what Benoit brings to the table, I believe that Keefe will make that switch back. And I agree. If Liljegren continues to play as he has for the past week and a half, I think that it's inevitable that he comes out, even if it's just for a game or two, to kind of let him regain his bearings, see what the lineup looks like if you do go without him and you go back to one right D being Lyubushkin. Yeah. But I think you'll see a lot of different looks on the back end from here to the end of the season as Keefe just kind of figures out what he's got and what he thinks gives the Leafs the best chance to win come game one, because I think that's what a lot of this is from here, which is game 64 tonight?
I think so, yeah.
From here, game 64 to game 82, it's going to be a lot of preparing for the playoffs and making sure that the Leafs begin playing the right way. If these guys are more committed to playing defensive hockey, then they're going to play more, kind of thing.
Yeah. Actually, it's actually game 65. You got, I believe, 18 games left to go. Yeah, and I think just kind of, I guess, tying a bow on the discussion with the lineup, I think for me, one thing that I worry about, and probably we're not there yet, but Simone Benoit is a UFA. We know Tyler Bertuzzi.
RFA.
Simone Benoit's RFA?
Yeah, Arbrights.
Ah.
So he's stuck here if we want him.
Yeah, as long as they give him a qualifying offer. Yeah, I totally forgot that. You're right. So he's an RFA. So one of the points I was going to make was guys like Bertuzzi and Benoit, what kind of motivation are they going to have to re-sign if Keefe is back next year, if they're just not feeling like they're being used in the right spot? I think Bertuzzi and Keefe.
I think Benoit has no reason to be upset. I mean, he came here.
Upset that he's not playing.
He didn't make the team out of camp. He didn't make the team out of camp because he had a terrible preseason. He came here on league minimum, and I think the Leafs have more than given him an opportunity to flourish in top 4 D pair minutes for a large portion of the season. And so I don't think that he can sit there and be like, oh, the Leafs didn't give me a chance. I know it's frustrating to be scratched, and especially if he's scratched come playoff time.
Right.
But I don't think
I think these 2 games here
to say that he wouldn't be accepted.
Yeah, these 2 games here probably not going to be enough to drive him out of town, or at least not accept a qualifying offer if that's where the Leafs decide to go, or if it goes to arbitration. But maybe more specifically with Bertuzzi, I mean, we know at least the reports were in terms of what led to maybe Ryan O'Reilly, Luke Schenn deciding to leave. They didn't like whether it was the culture, whether it was the coach, combination of the two.
I think,
it just kind of worries me that with Sheldon Keefe, it's, he seems to always have his favorites. And look, if you're winning Stanley Cups, if you're going on deep playoff runs, very difficult to question the players you put in those positions or in those spots above other guys. But we saw it last year too, where after we made some trades leading up to the trade deadline, acquiring guys like Eric Gustafsson, Luke Schenn, Achari, Lafferty, there was very questionable usage of certain players. And then we kept hearing, like, for the last 20 games, well, Sheldon is just going to be playing around. He's seeing what he has available. But then come playoff time, we still didn't see like that much set in terms of the lineup. Sometimes we went 11-7. Then he took out Timothy Liljegren. So I just kind of have these like feelings about Sheldon Keefe in terms of his ability of finding the optimal lineup. And I know it's never going to be perfect, but I just kind of question some of the choices he makes. That's my long rant about Sheldon.
Those guys from last year, I think Luke Schenn primarily left because he came to Toronto and he outplayed his contract by so much, and he looked so good in the spotlight of Toronto that he just got an offer he can't refuse from Nashville and he had to go. I think
Yeah.
it was more so O'Reilly who I think didn't like what the culture was.
Yeah.
But once again, it wasn't a problem with the lineup that Keefe was setting. I think it's more the culture that he and Dubas at the time built in that locker room
Yeah.
that I think he wasn't a fan of. But once again, O'Reilly was what? Second line center, power play 1 for his entire time here. Like, it's not the lineup.
No, I mean, I hope not, but I mean, it just seemed like kind of odd him going to the Preds. I get it. There was a pretty big offer from Nashville for him to go, but it sounded like there might have been a comparable offer here. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think we'll ever know for sure. There's obviously been a lot of reports on what caused it, what made them leave, but yeah, I think with Sheldon, I think I kind of, in terms of his strategy, lineup decision making, his ability as a tactician. I think there's been enough times that needs to be questioned. He's seemingly has been out coached in most playoff series.
We've been out coached against John Cooper, who's one of, if not the best coach this kind of 2020s era.
Yeah, and Paul Maurice.
Paul Maurice is another guy very highly respected.
I mean, again, it's not all coming down to coaching.
The Habs one is a little bit more frustrating for sure, but
yeah,
when it was Boston, it was like Bruce Cassidy, and Bruce Cassidy is pretty highly respected coach as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Keefe, I wouldn't say he's an excellent coach. I wouldn't even go as far as to say call him a great coach.
Yeah.
But I think that he is an above average coach that if the Leafs were to get rid of him and fire him at the end of the season, which I think if we have another first round exit or another very lacking playoff run, I think that Tree Living has zero ties to him and would be fine to get his own coach. Because I think that's what a lot of GMs like to do is bring in their own guy. Yeah. Right? It's like head coaches in the NFL with a quarterback. Like, you want your own guy.
Yeah, you got that familiarity.
Yeah, so I think that if he has another bad postseason, then Keefe's probably gone, and then we'll see what this team looks like with a new coach.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's kind of his last opportunity. They obviously gave him that endorsement with a 2-year extension. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that kind of, to me at least, I think there was a lot of talk when the Leafs were in a little bit of a slump through whether November, December. We were saying, oh, you got to fire Keefe.
Which is like...
even for me, that felt premature. And knowing that they gave him that 2-year extension, I was like, they're not going to make a move. Because obviously, as long as the Maple Leafs were in a playoff position, which they pretty much were the entire year, despite any kind of hiccups they had, you're not going to fire the guy that you just gave a 2-year extension on the basis that, hey, look, he's gotten this team into the playoffs every year. That says something to me about the caliber of coach he is. You're not going to then fire him if he's still in the playoffs in November, December. So it never made sense, that talk. I figured he would get one more playoff year, like one more playoff turn with Toronto, and then see what happens depending on the result there.
Yeah, so let me ask you this, because I'm kind of curious of what you think. So pretend you're Tyler Bertuzzi.
Yeah.
And the Leafs are like, all right, we would like to bring you back. What's your demand? Contract asks. What do you think Bertuzzi asks for? With the way he's played this season, I'll tell you an updated. He has 12 goals, 17 assists, and he averages around 16 minutes of ice time.
Yeah, it's not good. I have a feeling his agent won't be relying too much on that to build a case. I mean, I think he's going to be looking for term. I mean, he's 29 years old, I think. He's going to be wanting term. He's not going to take another 1-year deal, I don't think. So maybe he has to, I don't think his ask can be that much higher in terms of AAV to what it is now, but we do obviously have a higher cap. I think there's going to be teams that need to get to the salary cap floor. maybe it's not going to be the contending teams or the desirable markets that Bertuzzi would want to play for. But I would think he'd have an offer between 5 and 6 mil AAV times maybe 3 or 4. And I would think he'd give the Leafs a chance to match it. But I don't think he's going to be taking
There
a
wouldn't be a
large
discount
discount.
now. Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't know if it's gone well enough for him. I mean, I know we still have 18 games left in the regular season and playoffs. Who knows what's going to happen? But from what we know right now, I would think he'd be open to re-signing here, but I don't think at a discounted rate because I think there'd be enough money out there for him.
Yeah, like that's I think there will be a team stupid enough to give him $6 million.
I could see that easily.
I think there would be one that just says we like what he brings. But at this point, if I guess with the cap going up, he could, the 4.5 turns into 5. I don't think he's earned anywhere close to what is he making this season? 5.5?
5.5, I believe. Yeah.
Right. But I see a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of Leaf fans who I think like the idea of Bertuzzi more than you actually like Bertuzzi.
Oh, 100%. That's what it is, for sure. It's the way he could be playing, the way he could be contributing, but he's only done that for maybe 5 games this year.
And he only did it for 7 games in the playoffs for Boston last year. Then they lost.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, he's obviously done well in past seasons with Detroit. I mean, he's been able to be a decent producer at the NHL. So I don't think it was crazy for Leaf fans to think, hey, he's getting signed here. Does that mean he goes to play top line with Matthews Marner? That should mean at least 30 goals. We've seen guys with equal or maybe less talent like Michael Bunting, Zach Hyman, all produced pretty well, pretty good seasons with Matthews. So I was kind of on board with that expectation that Bertuzzi, hey, if he fits in well, show some chemistry there, why couldn't he score 30 playing with those guys? But it never panned out. And I guess Keefe is still trying to find chemistry with Bertuzzi and Matthews again tonight. But it hasn't panned out for him. But I still think that there's a lot of GMs that are looking to throw cash at players because they have to obviously fill their roster spots. They have to hit the cap floor. So I think Bertuzzi, if you look at the free agent class, it's not very good. It's not very good. So I don't think Bertuzzi is going to have a difficult time getting a 3-4 year contract at 5+ AAV.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so frustrating when I hear people and I see these people talking as if Bertuzzi is going to be a mainstay on the Leafs going forward. I saw this thread where this person basically was saying trade Marner and trade Tavares in the offseason, and then you have $48 million in cap space to fill in your roster. And the first thing I thought was, let's fill in our roster with a 90 to 95 point forward and a 2C. Oh, wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that happens a lot, right? Where everyone's like, trade Marner. They should have traded Nylander. But who you're replacing them with? For me, I think it is a realistic scenario. The trading Marner. I don't think JT because not much value there. But I think we've talked about it before. When you look at what Mitch Marner will potentially be looking to make on his next deal, if it's going to be between 12 and 13, which I think is almost a certainty, he's not taking the same money he's making now, 10.9. He's not going to say, give me Nylander's money.
I think there's a chance that he would accept matching contracts with Nylander. Just
really?
I think
Mitch Marner.
I think there's a real opportunity there for him to say, here, Toronto, I'm going to be here for the rest of my career. My entire career, Toronto kid, never going to play outside of Toronto.
He didn't do that last time with his contract. He certainly milked us for every penny.
I will say, I'm not against the idea of trading Marner, but I think what Leaf fans have to prepare themselves for is that 2 years after the trade, when they're bashing whoever it is that makes the deal, whether it's Tree Living or another GM, when they're bashing that GM for us not getting enough value in the trade, because I feel there's
For sure.
zero chance you get equivalent value to Mitch Marner.
No, you won't win that trade on paper. I think the only way I would expect
By
to
a
see
change in culture, then maybe it does something for your team. I agree.
Yeah, like if you trade Mitch for like a future type package, like maybe you get like one solid current veteran asset, and then the rest of the package is more first round picks, prospects that you then could turn into something else. Because yeah, no one's going to have an $11 million equivalent player to Marner that you just can call up the GM and say, hey, Mitch for your guy. Not going to happen. Like we saw the Bowen Byram, Casey Middlestat hockey trade. How many of those happened?
None.
You know? Yeah, I think the last one I remember was like PK Subban for Shea Weber. Like you don't ever see current players get swapped like that. Good players.
Yeah. And it's like some people are suggesting just a straight up Marner for Travis Konechny trade. And it's like I like Konechny.
You'd have to add Konechny.
I like Konechny as much as the next guy. Don't get me wrong. I think that what he brings to the table is really awesome, and I really wanted the Leafs to go for him last trade deadline when it sounded like the Flyers were shopping him a bit because they're worried about how much he's going to demand on his next contract. I thought he was the perfect guy for complementing this core. He could come in, play on your second line, great defensively, kills penalties, can be on your power play if you need him to be, up and down the lineup kind of guy. But is he equivalent value to Marner? No. By doing that trade, do you lose it? Probably, but in the long run, could that trade help your team? It's a weird, paradox because you're getting worse, but are you getting better? It's weird.
Yeah, and I think you wouldn't be able to evaluate just on that transaction because you'd be trading not only the player Mitch Marner, you'd be trading his 10.9 contract for next year and whatever you think you'd pay him after that for Konechny, who I believe is around 5.5.
And whatever you're going to have to pay him as well.
Yeah, sure. So if we assume he'll probably get between 7 and 8 on a new deal, who knows? But you factor in that, okay, if we're paying him 8 versus paying Mitch 12.5, what can we do with that extra 4.5? Is that a top 4 D-man? Is that a guy who could play in our top 6 that probably won't be the same type of point producer than Mitch Marner is, but Konechny, him, and I think even with that trade, Konechny for Marner, I would hope to least because Marner or Konechny still has, I think, only like one more year left. So you're basically talking about 2 guys with soon to be expiring contracts. So I would think the Leafs would expect Flyers to add to Konechny, or else there'd be no chance making a deal. And I know we're just talking hypothetically anyways, but if you add it to Konechny with, like, say, a good prospect or a first, then all of a sudden it's now Konechny, that first, the cap space for Mitch Marner. That makes it look better.
And then in that case, then you're like, okay, I'd probably do it. But it's all comes down to whether or not the team produces in the playoffs again, and whether or not they live up to the expectations that not just the city, but the Vegas sports books have on them. Like they're pretty highly favored to go for the Stanley Cup, right? So at this point, if we can live up to the hype, I feel like there's no shot that the team blows it up. I think we saw it happen with Washington, where it's the same core and they're running it back year after year, and everybody's like, why don't they just trade Ovi? Why don't they trade Backstrom? They should trade Carlson, and they get over that hump and they win the cup, right? So
and
maybe that's just what I'm holding on to. Maybe that's just what I'm holding on to as an ignorant Leafs fan, but
No, hey, you obviously aren't alone in that, right? I think, for sure, I've had that same kind of discussion with people like, hey, look, I get it. It hasn't happened yet, but don't pretend that it happened right away for McKinnon or Ovechkin, like sometimes, or Stamkos. I mean, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So I do get that. I do think the differences there are in terms of how the Maple Leafs chose to allocate their cap dollars, whereas other teams either had goaltending kind of shored up. They had a blue line that was way better than what we've got. So it's not completely apples to apples, but I think the general narrative of, hey, the Leafs have failed because they haven't won yet, obviously is very flawed. And it doesn't take much to pull up the archives to say, well, no, look, this team was also thought that of someone who had no chance to ever get over that hump, and look what happened.
Yeah, and I compare the Leafs a lot to the Colorado Avalanche. I compare them a lot to the Avs because you have the high-end center talent, McKinnon, Matthews, right? Then you have the winger talent, Rantanen, Marner, Landeskog, Nylander. And then you have the guy on the back end that, it's gonna sound terrible, but Riley.
You're not gonna compare Riley to Makar, are you? Please.
No,
Please
but
don't.
I'm just, I'm putting it out there. Okay, so you have those core guys. The difference is what it comes down to is, Rantanen makes 9, whereas Marner's making 11. And then it's like Makar's making 9 and Riley's making 7.5 and is a half the player.
Right.
So,
right.
What it really comes down to is money, because it's easier for some areas of the U.S., I guess, with the tax and all that. But man, I really think if these guys just took 1 mil or $1.5 million less,
for sure,
we'd be so much better.
Well, and I mean, it makes you kind of think, like, if Lou was doing the Marner or the Nylander negotiation, I'm talking about the previous ones, not the recent one of Nylander, you have to think that you'd get at least $500K to $1 million shaved off both of those contracts, because Marner did not want to go anywhere. You knew he was going to hang around. I don't know why you eventually had to sign off on 10.9. Like, if you had got even 10.9 times 8, I think I could have lived with that more, Get the extra 2 years.
I think what I would have liked more, he's coming out of his ELC. He just had a great season, yes, and that kind of pops it up.
Yeah.
But if you can hang him around 8, if you can hang him around 8.5, then it's 2. You're cutting off 2.5. That 2.5 could really go a long way from changing a Klingberg into a Hannafin kind of guy,
Totally.
Or what was it, like Zaitsev into someone way better than Zaitsev.
Yeah, you'd probably have room for those upgrades for sure. Okay, I wanted to throw something your way, kind of a pick the option that is more likely. So let's do these 2 scenarios. There are 18 games left in the season. The Maple Leafs are now 9 points behind the Bruins for second place in the Atlantic. They have 3 games in hand.
Okay.
What is more likely? The Maple Leafs pass the Bruins to get in, or whoever, they get into second place in the Atlantic, or Austin Matthews, who we know is cooled off, gets 70 goals. He has 18 games left to do it. He needs 16 goals. What is more likely?
Matthews to hit 70.
Yeah? Okay.
So the thing is, every time he slows down, that means that you're just like, the water's boiling and he's about to get a hat trick. I'm just waiting for it at this point.
So perhaps with Janrkrok tonight, he's going to come alive. 3 goals.
Hey, yeah. I mean, he scored a hat trick last time we faced Philly as well. So
that's right.
He has Ersson's number. So let's see it happen again.
Yeah, like I threw out that question without actually knowing what my answer would be, but I do tend to agree. I just think between Boston and Florida, I don't think either of those teams are going to fall off enough that we get into second. I also don't think Matthews is getting 70. When you look at the schedule, It's, Philly twice, Carolina twice, Florida twice, Tampa twice. I don't see him getting
The thing
16 and
is like
18.
how much does like a back-to-back 2-goal games or a 3-goal game
Sure.
change your expectations, right? Then all of a sudden it turns into 13 goals in 17 games, and then you're like,
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I
that's
mean, if we have this discussion again on Tuesday after he just went back-to-back hat tricks Thursday and Saturday, then I'm going to sound like a complete idiot and say, yeah, of course, it was always Matthews was more likely.
or
But
even
from
if he
what we
just
know
scores,
now,
even if he just scores 2 goals over this next 2 games, then all of a sudden he's what is that?
yeah, it changes the pace a
14.
lot.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
I,
and then
I
you're
don't know when
looking at
you're talking
14 and
about the best
17.
goal scorer. When you're talking about the best goal scorer in the league, he heats up and then he cools down. So
Yeah, for sure. I just see games now obviously getting a little bit tighter, especially when you're playing these playoff teams like Carolina, like Philly, like Florida. Everyone's fighting for position. I don't think the Leafs are going to have too many of what they beat Arizona. What was Arizona? 7-2, Vegas 7-3. It just feels like some of those opportunities for him to light the lamp multiple times in a game are going to be far and few between, but 100% agree to your point. I don't think I would put anything past the guy. I think we've known whenever you think he might not be able to get or do better than what he did the previous year, we're obviously having discussion about 70. So, yeah, clearly. Okay, any, I guess, final thoughts on Philly tonight, Carolina, maybe a prediction on either game, both games?
I'll say the Leafs are going to win tonight and Saturday. Little 3-game winning streak.
Whoa. Okay.
I'll take a look at the odds right now. Leafs are minus 120. Over under at
Yeah.
6.5. I'd go. I'd say it's gonna hit. It's gonna be like 5-3 kind of game. Leafs win.
Yeah.
The over hits, and you can take them
Over,
on the
huh?
puck line if you want.
You like a puck line too, eh?
You can take them on the puck line. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
That's very tasty.
At
One
plus
and a half. Yeah.
190.
Yeah. I'm seeing
The
180 on
Flyers
FanDuel, but yeah.
no torts behind the bench.
That's true. That's true. That could probably affect the, just in terms of the bench and kind of how, inspired they are throughout the game. So I can see that being a factor.
If the Leafs can jump on them early, they don't have torts behind the bench, kind of keeping them in line and keeping their heads straight. So
yeah,
they could get a good lead and hold it out. But yeah, I
and
think the Leafs
Ilya
are going to win
Samsonov
tonight.
in.
I think
Samsonov in tonight.
Yeah. And then I think if Samsonov plays well, I think they run it back with him on Saturday against Carolina.
I think the same. Yeah, I think he's been on a little bit of a roll here, so I think you kind of keep going to him. I could see Keefe maybe if he set out the schedule at the start of the week, he might have already determined Wall's getting Carolina no matter what. But I kind of lean towards what you said. I think if Samsonov, has a good game tonight, I don't know why he wouldn't fire him right back up and put him in for Saturday.
But yeah, Saturday as well, it'll be a good game because Carolina plays a very playoff style hockey game. And I watched their game the other night when they faced the Rangers, and it was, especially in that third period, it was really back and forth, but a lot of good goaltending and a lot of good defensive plays. Right? Carolina they have a lot of quality defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Leafs kind of break that down.
Yeah, it was actually funny how I guess the other day we were talking about, Carolina. You said they won the trade deadline, added Jake Gensel. And yeah, everything we've talked about at Carolina is their problems have been they haven't put the puck in the net. They acquired Jake Gensel and Kuznetsov, and they get shut out the first game. It's only one game, but I did find that funny. Oh, good thing you got Gensel. You still can't score.
So next week, just on the Samsonov Wool, next week is a pair of back-to-backs. So you got Philly and then Capitals, then Oilers, Canes. So, Wool's going to get his games in next week with at least 2. Yeah. So that's why, especially if Samsonov plays well tonight, I think they would just run it back with him on Saturday. And there's not a worry about
so.
there's not a worry about Wool getting rusty because the quick turnaround next week and a couple back-to-backs.
No, exactly. I don't think Wall has necessarily earned the net back since he came off injury. So I don't think it's fair to Samsonov to just say Samsonov is still going to split the games with Wall if Sammy's been the better guy, and he has been over the last week. Small sample size, but you kind of have to go with the hot hand. That's the way goaltending typically operates for most teams. Ride the hot hand. Doesn't matter about egos right now. If Sammy's been the guy and you can rely on him more to get a win, you're not in a position where you can be safe and just kind of put the lineup and kind of just try things. You obviously have to expect that you're putting the best lineup to get 2 points every night.
Exactly.
So I like it. All right, cool. So yeah, hopefully we get a win tonight. It'll be nice to see the boys back in action after a long layoff. And then then we'll have obviously the Carolina game as well to discuss when we connect next week.
For sure. See you then.
All right, Justin. Have a good one. You as well. See you, everybody. Have a good one.